What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the history of Wales. Now, I've thought about this a little bit, and more than any other part of the United Kingdom, Americans, including myself, don't know anything about Wales. What is going on there? What's going on in Wales? What is Wales up to? I never hear about Wales. The news never talks about Wales. I don't know what the people are like, the culture, certainly not the history of Wales, which is exactly what I'm hoping to fix today. At least I'm aware that I don't know anything about Wales. But in all seriousness, in the United States growing up and just throughout time here, we come up with reasons and news and events to discuss some things about Scotland, tons of stuff about England, plenty of stuff about Ireland, but never Wales. I couldn't even tell you, I assume they speak English. That should tell you I don't even know what language they speak there, although I'm positive it's English. Otherwise, I don't know what's real anymore. But maybe I'll stand corrected. I'm actually pretty fascinated today to learn a bit about Wales. This is the history. At some point, I'm going to have to learn more about the modern day culture, but this is a good place to start. So let's take a look.
The history of the British Isles is an uneven affair, to put it mildly. We're familiar with how Scotland and Ireland drew the imperial short stick and enjoyed the pleasure of being sat upon by England, but perhaps the shortest stick of the bunch was drawn by Wales, who is often left out of the discussion entirely.
Yeah, no offense, but it seems like when learning about the history of the United Kingdom, there was a large amount of history directed towards England and their relationship with Scotland and Ireland, Northern Ireland, but not a lot talked about Wales, and I didn't quite understand that, but so I'm hoping to understand it now.
And while I'm shocked that anybody could gloss over the country that is a freaking dragon flag, Wales has been tragically sidelined from the historical narrative of the Isles, and I will not stand for it. Wales has impressively and improbably maintained a distinct Celtic culture since the very start, and it is far too cool for historians to be doing them dirty like that. So, to see how Wales did the hard carry for Great Britain's culture for 2,000 straight years, let's do some history. A proper understanding of this whole Wales business requires us to go way back in British history. No, too far. Yeah, there we go. See, Celtic culture in Britain is the foundation of what will eventually become Wales, but these guys aren't the easiest to get a handle on. The Celtic, or Gallic people, stretched out from Central Europe towards Gaul, Iberia, and the British Isles, but also went southeast towards the Black Sea, and one problem for us loser historians is that it's unclear how and even kinda if they settled in Britain. There are competing theories for who, when, where, and why, ranging from the standard migration models to the possibility that very few Celts actually settled in Britain.
So, along with a lot of the history of the UK, it seems like the earliest formation of what would become modern-day Wales and the Welsh people started with the Celtic people migrating from Europe to the northwest, finally onto the British Isles, and eventually to Wales.
Logic being that overseas trade was key to the Bronze Age economy, and Britain's tin deposits made them a big export hub. Since tin is half the chemical structure for bronze, that meant people from all over Europe and the Mediterranean came to the Atlantic coasts to get their bronze on, and this includes our Celt boys. So it wasn't mass migration that brought Celtic people to Britain, but rather local Britons who buddied up with Celtic traders by speaking their language and copying their swirly Latin art. So according to this meme model, the local Britons thought Celtic culture was LOL so relatable XD that they adopted it all up and down the Isles. Whether or not this model is fully accurate...
Wait, hold on. I have to listen to this again. What is this meme? What?
So according to this meme model, the local Britons thought Celtic culture was LOL so relatable XD that they adopted it all up and down the Isles. Whether or not this model is fully accurate,
That's like the joke, but it's kind of a joke, but not a joke. But some of the reason Wales has Celtic culture is because they did a lot of trading with the Celtic people and just absorbed the culture into their society would be like a more reasonable way to put it and less Mimi?
It would account for some weird archaeological and linguistic discrepancies in the traditional migration theory, and it also foreshadows the prestige placed on bards and literary prowess by later Celtic cultures. Because it's equal parts cool as all hell and existentially horrifying that a culture can, basically by itself, take hold of an entire population by willing itself into existence. This would be our first indication that Wales has big eldritch energy. Other civilizations, however, would not follow this lead.
Wait. So is there some kind of debate going on where either the Celtic people migrated to the British Isles and became Wales, or if Wales simply did trade with them and absorbed aspects of their culture? Is that a thing? I don't know. I feel like I have a very rough idea at this point of what's going on.
Because the Romans found that culture was best delivered by spear point. While on their way to fill out their pan-imperial punch card and get their 10th new province free, Roman emperors in the mid-1st century campaigned into Britain. Most Roman settlements were in the south and east, where all the easy agriculture was, and although goods, coins, and Roman legions did make their way west, the cultural and linguistic impact on so-called Britannia Secunda was only slight. Perhaps the most transformative thing the Romans did in Wales was leave, because the post-Roman migrations from Central Europe into Britain totally upended the island's demographics. Frustratingly,
So as impactful as Rome trying to take over all of Britain was, Rome leaving is what allowed like Wales to form its own identity and not just become Roman.
it's nigh impossible to show this kind of thing clearly on a map, which is why turbulent centuries in history with slim documentation make blue a sad boy, but here's the gist. We know the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes from northern Europe arrived and displaced many of the Romano-Britons, but over in the west there was also an influx of Irish Celts coming in to settle. This age of migrations was much more overtly migratory than the Celtic arrival in Britain in the millennium before, though, again, the native Britons didn't really leave. After a few decades of raiding gave way to much more peaceable settlement, most Britons were happy to start speaking Germanic and make friends with their new Saxon neighbors than to up and book it for the hills.
I mean, this almost makes it sound like Wales is just a mishmash of a lot of different cultures in their early beginnings. Now we have people migrating from Ireland to Wales, as well as all the Saxons and before them the Celts, and just all types of people ended up influencing Wales.
Still, the end result was the confinement of native Celtic culture to the far west in Wales and Cornwall. And that split explains why it's called Wales. It comes from the Germanic word wala, meaning foreigner, while the Welsh call it cumri, from the Celtic word for countryman. It's also in this migratory shuffle that the legend of the Romano-British King Arthur first pops up, though it'll be a couple centuries before he's labeled as Arthur, or a king. Honestly, the whole early medieval period in Wales has this pseudo-mythic Age of Heroes vibe to it. Good documentation is blah, what else is new, but the oral traditions that will later become the core of Welsh epic literature get their start in this era. So, as far as we can tell, what was going on in medieval Wales? Well, isolation from Germanic majority England was good for preserving a unified Celtic culture, but the politics were much more wibbly.
Oh, hold on. I am actually interested in this. Not just what he's talking about, but this little fun fact on the dragon and the dragon on their flag. What is that all about? Dragons are a big deal in Wales. The red dragon represents the Welsh Celtic people, while the white dragon represents the Saxon people. Okay, interesting.
Various local princes vied for hegemony over the many disparate realms, but succession always proved their undoing, as sons would squabble and big kingdoms would shrink back to where they started. The princes of Gwynedd and Powys were the most successful of the bunch, and as a result, King Offa of Mercia built a dike across his border in the late 700s to try and keep Powys out. But that worked about as well as any frontier walls have worked throughout history, which is to say...
The kaiju and a northern Category 4 broke through the coastal wall in less than an hour.
This is like a Godzilla reference, or that other movie.
Barely. So despite the best attempts of Saxon kings and the Irish Sea, Wales wasn't entirely cut off from the rest of the world, as they had gotten on board with Christianity thanks to the missionary Saint David back in the 6th century. They might not have been the most...
Hold on. This is just making me... I have to satisfy my curiosity here and Google Wales and look at a map of it. Just to know something. Okay. Okay, so it is just this section right here. I was kind of curious if there is any more in between this body of water and to the south by Plymouth and Exeter and Torquay, as he was pointing out. Yes, I do have to actually physically bring up a map to check on the geographic boundaries of Wales. Sue me!
consistent of pen pals with the Pope in Rome, but they were mostly on the same page. Wales' early medieval history of relative chill was aided by England's near-constant Viking tire fire, which pushed Conquer Wales way down the to-do list. But that changed when our old pals the Normans kite-shielded their way to conquering England, because suddenly...
So, what I'm getting also is that Wales was just kind of this Celtic identifying area with possibly some Irish influence. That's just kind of chilling on the western part of the island, just kind of doing their own thing. And England so far has so much going on in terms of fighting and protecting itself that they really can't be troubled to like try to take over Wales or do anything crazy like that. So Wales is just kind of doing its thing.
This new Norman England had a much stronger army, and they proceeded to point it right at Wales. Norman lords pushed into Wales along the northern and southern...
Okay, never mind. Wales is under attack.
Kite-shielded Wales way down the to-do list. But that changed when our old pals the Normans kite-shielded their way to conquering England. Because suddenly, this new Norman England had a much stronger army, and they proceeded to point it right at Wales. Norman lords pushed into Wales along the northern and southern coasts and made some, but not a lot of progress. Since Wales was made of small principalities, the Normans could play the Welsh off each other, but then all of their gains were only incremental.
I was gonna say, that's pretty amazing. If, well, since Wales still exists, as far as I am aware, to this day, Wales successfully defended this attack? That's pretty amazing. But he's kind of explaining why. Kind of due to how it was structured.
Principalities, the Normans could play the Welsh off each other, but then all of their gains were only incremental. Not so easy as winning Hastings and calling it a day. While casual war was the standard for the...
Oh, there's no, like, central power or capital that England could, like, take over. And then once you have that, you're just like, oh, I have Wales now. No, it was, like, divided into a lot of principalities and territories. So even if you captured a territory of Wales, you don't own all of Wales because they're all kind of independent. That's actually kind of cool. Like, it's like a perfect demonstration of how decentralized power is, like, difficult to take over. Interesting.
The next 200 years along the borderland marches, elements of Anglo-Norman and Welsh culture made their way across. The princes of Gwynedd, Powys, and Deheubarth picked up some Norman political structures, and England learned about Welsh longbows the hard way. Although Wales didn't form into a unified nation, they did get close a couple times. Llewellyn Var fought off his family members to become Prince of Gwynedd and proceeded to bap all of his enemies out of the way so that he could assert his hegemony over Wales. He also tried to streamline the rules for royal succession so that every interregnum didn't immediately explode into a civil war. He then pushed eastward into the March and defeated King John of England so handily that his barons made him sign the Magna Carta to stop being such a royal knob.
Oh my gosh, this guy's kind of a badass. I didn't even think about the fact that Wales wasn't unified till, actually I don't know when. I'm sure this video will tell me, I hope, when Wales as we know it, unified, came into existence.
Llewellyn's military successes weren't quite matched by his grandson, also Llewellyn. Though he did the biggest prince in Wales routine again, he was defeated by England's King Edward Longshanks. The next year, in 1283, Edward pushed into Wales and stomped out the princes, using the old Norman trick of building a buttload of castles in newly conquered territory to stop the locals from getting ideas.
Oh, I wonder if in Wales to this day, well, I'm positive, in Wales, I bet you can find these castles that are actually not Welsh, but built by England during their attempted conquest of Wales. Interesting.
In a twist that should surprise no one, England needed more than a few of these to do the trick, so Wales has the highest castle density of any country in Europe, with
there you go, exactly. That's kind of like really interesting.
over 600 built and 100 still standing today. That
Wow.
is, and I really cannot stress this enough, a stupid amount of castles. That's the density equivalent of 23 castles in New York City, with a less impressive but still formidable 2 castles just in Manhattan. Good lord! In
Wow.
any case, the post-conquest period was a weird century for Wales. Suddenly they were subordinate to England, but soon they got tied up in the 100 Years' War, and then everybody had plague to contend with. So while it was a real wacky time, it was also surprisingly indicative of the history still to come, as England goes about its business while holding a pillow over Wales' face, gently shushing them and hoping nobody notices. Forgive me for...
Oh, the way he describes stuff is genuinely funny at times. Oh, a pillow over his face. Okay.
While holding a pillow over Wales' face, gently shushing them and hoping nobody notices. Forgive me.
So at this point in time, Wales is like under the rule of England. Probably has something to do with how all of this as we know it will become the United Kingdom.
For speedrunning through the next several centuries, but I've already done the England plotline once, and that was painful enough. A century after a thwarted independence uprising in 1400, Wales had the good fortune to pull a reverso and put a Welshman on the English throne.
Oh, wait. Hold on. The Welsh rose against England, so they did try to fight for their independence against England on other occasions, like 20 times, apparently, throughout history.
The man in question was one Henry VII, notable ender of the War of the Roses, and he set up Wales for greater integration with England and way more rights than they had before. This all became official via...
Okay. So that's kind of smart. Like, after hundreds of years of fighting, Wales, like, agreed to formally have a pact with England in exchange for, like, more rights, and arguably more independence would be recognized if they just kind of accept that they're going to be a part of England, you could say.
The Laws in Wales Acts passed by Henry VIII in the mid-1500s. He drew up county borders, standardized laws, gave Welshmen equal status as Englishmen, and gave Wales representation in Parliament. And as an added bonus of Henry's hop over to Protestantism, the Church translated the Bible into Welsh. This protection of the Welsh language coincided with a new interest in medieval culture and ancient literature, and language became a defining feature of the Welsh identity. While all of this was going on, the political story of...
Hold on. We just said something about the Welsh language. Wales. Language. I'm tired of... Welsh is a Celtic language. So like Welsh is a language? I'm a little confused. What language does Wales speak? Welsh and English. Okay. Huh. I didn't know that. I really didn't. I kind of assumed it was a possibility that they spoke Welsh, but the more I've learned about the United Kingdom, I started to think, well, Wales is literally right smack in between 3 other English-speaking nations. So how in the modern day could they not speak English? And the answer is they speak both. Bilingual. I'm jealous.
Wales got folded into the larger English narrative, what with the Spanish Armada-ing, the union of the crowns of England and Scotland-ing, and the creation of a globe-spanning empire. Yeah. Despite playing second fiddle, maybe closer to fourth, in the history of the British Empire, Welsh literature was rising in prominence during the Romantic movement, thanks in part to some shiny new editions of classic works. Specifically, Lady Charlotte Guest compiled and published the 4 branches of the Mabinogi, and doubly translated too, so Welsh and English readers could both enjoy the medieval folklore. And
I bet there is so much Welsh culture and, like he's saying, literature and arts and countless things from Wales that I am not aware of, just because Wales is never talked about in the United States, and I don't know why.
In contrast to Scots Gaelic going kaput and Irish Gaelic suffering a steep decline in the 1800s that they're only recently bouncing back from, Welsh literature and poetry came in clutch for the long-term endurance of the language. But while the Romantic era was in full swing, so too was the Industrial Revolution. So all these fancy new machines and choo-choo trains needed coal if they wanted to do anything, and Wales happens to have a crap ton of the stuff. Southern Wales swiftly became the mining capital of the empire, and while coal and slate may have been big business, they were also hellish jobs to work. So,
go figure. Technology comes along and randomly Southern Wales is one of the most important parts of the United Kingdom now, because it has all these coal deposits.
Wales ended the century more urbanized than it had ever been, but the Welsh probably weren't so thrilled about why, especially as British attitudes towards them soured and Wales got the dingy reputation shared by all other regions doing heavy industry. Although the 1900s started out
Wales has a dingy reputation because of like a history of coal mining? Is that true?
Dingy reputation. Thrilled about why, especially as British attitudes towards them soured and Wales got the dingy reputation shared by all other regions doing heavy industry.
Is that true? Does Wales have a reputation?
Although the 1900s started out pretty rough, what with the coal mining and a nasty spell of discrimination against the Welsh language in schools and work, Wales turned a corner after the Second World War. Industry
Oh, hold on. He's actually talking about a little bit of what I was interested in. as far as Welsh language. It sounds to me like by pure force of will and beautiful literature and spoken word, the Welsh language has survived, whereas other countries' languages have probably not. The Welsh language has survived up until now, along with taking on English as a second language, or a bilingual, could be equal language, just because of the Welsh history and their determination to keep that culture alive, which is pretty cool, honestly.
Although the 1900s started out pretty rough, what with coal mining and a nasty spell of discrimination against the Welsh language in schools and work, Wales turned a corner after the Second World War. Industry diversified, and politicians campaigned for more regional autonomy and protections for the language. The Welsh Language Acts of 1967 and 93 elevated Welsh to on par with English, granting bilingual signage, the right to use Welsh in legal proceedings, and Welsh language broadcasting. So,
wow, yeah, I mean, this is a big deal to me. This is probably one of the most interesting parts of this whole video to me. Sadly, my epiphany of the existence of the Welsh language in the modern day, and the fact that they really are right smack in the middle of a lot of English-speaking nations that are quite important. It's very interesting.
So now a third of Wales can speak the native language. And in 1999, Wales, and also Scotland, but that's a different story, got its own National Assembly, later promoted to Parliament. And that's Wales. Far too often sidelined in the history of the Isles, Wales has an enchanting historical vibe the other three countries lack. Maybe it's the ancient Celtic language and the dragon flag getting to me, but Wales feels older. Like you can wander...
It does feel older. He is so spot on. There is something so mysterious and enchanting about Wales. Maybe it's just because it's the nation I know the least about in the UK. Maybe that's what it is.
Ancient Celtic language and the dragon flag getting to me, but Wales feels older. Like you can wander slightly too far off a hiking trail and stumble into Narnia. As anybody who knows Welsh can confirm, it just sounds like the language dragons would speak. And I know better than to disrespect the Dragon Lords. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay. Okay. That was by Overly Sarcastic Productions. Of course it was. That makes a lot of sense. I liked that. I liked that a lot. I don't know if I was able to digest all of that information in such a short amount of time, but I have a much, much better idea of the history of Wales. I mean, I was starting at zero knowledge, so by definition of watching this, I have to have more information. But seriously, there's a couple of tidbits in here that I really think were quite useful in making me understand more about, like, Wales' history as well as modern Wales. So, very interesting stuff. I still am quite interested in the future to learn more about specific things in Wales, to get a little more in depth about its culture, because it does seem quite fascinating. And this was very general, but a fantastic starting place nonetheless. I did enjoy this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the United Kingdom, Great Britain, things there, the culture, stuff that I've just never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.